Welcome to another episode of Sky Indycar, and I'm delighted to be joined by British driver Louis Foster, who's making waves over the other side of the Atlantic. Louis, you're currently leading the Indy NXT Championship, and for our Sky Indycar viewers, just tell us a little bit about Indy NXT, what that is, and your IndyCar journey so far.
Yeah, so firstly, Indy NXT is the stepping stone to IndyCar. Previously, it was named Indy Lights, but they rebranded this year to Indy NXT, or last year maybe. But yeah, it's basically the IndyCar equivalent of Formula 2. It's the last step before you make it up to IndyCar. I moved over to America in 2022, sorry. After racing in the UK, doing Ginetta Juniors, British F4, British F3, and then one season in Europe in Formula 3, Euro Formula, and then moved over to America in 22. So yeah, I kind of done half my career so far in Europe, and now spending the second half so far in America, and planning on staying over here for as long as possible.
And you've had success at every single level that you've competed in. What was it like going from a Formula 3 car across to US Pro in America? What were the challenges? Is an F3 car quicker? And so forth. And what was the precursor for heading over to America?
Yeah, so the Euro Formula car that I drove, which was the old FIA F3 car, so it's the Dallara F320, yeah, that was obviously quite a lot of downforce and extremely fast. So when I moved over to USF Pro, that car's quite similar to like your British F3 car. So it's quite a similar kind of like a stepping stone F3 car, one of the slower F3 cars. So yeah, I was used to it. It was a little bit slower, but I was used to kind of the car and how it handled. And then the main reason really I moved over to America is that there isn't really any other support in the Formula One ladder that there is in the IndyCar ladder. I mean, nowadays in Formula One, obviously it's very expensive to get up there, and to pay for seasons of F3 and F2 is very hard. And there's no kind of monetary reward for winning anything over in Europe at the moment, whereas America is completely different. I mean, without the scholarship money put on by IndyCar and Anderson Promotions, I wouldn't be racing in Indy NXT right now. You know, it's they really help, financially support drivers, which, is realistically the main support a driver needs is financial. Because, like I said, it's expensive to do it. And yeah, it's a lot of hard work. But I've loved it over here in America. It's been absolutely awesome. Andretti, who I'm with, are a great team. So yeah, I'm loving it.
And there's some huge names that have trodden the journey that you're on. Have you got any inspirational, drivers to think of that have made the transition from Europe over to America?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's a lot of different drivers. I mean, the most obvious one you would think of with British and IndyCar is Weldon. But yeah, I wouldn't say there's like a one standout driver who's like a massive inspiration to me. There's obviously a lot of drivers in IndyCar right now who are extremely talented, and it's a very, very competitive series. The drivers in IndyCar are world class, and it's super, super close. I mean, you can see it week in, week out. You really can't bet on who's going to win because it's anyone's game. So yeah, I mean, obviously to be British in America, it's great to support British motorsport and show what we're all about. Obviously, there aren't too many Brits on the grid right now in IndyCar. There's one or two maybe. So I'd like to be able to add my name to that list.
And you've got a British teammate as well. What's it like having a British teammate? That must be nice of you. You can talk about tea and the British summertime, the weather, and everything else.
Yeah, obviously Jamie's a really good girl. We get on really well. So, yeah, we chat about stuff, and, we've been discussing currently the Euros and, just beating Switzerland maybe an hour ago. So, yeah, no, I mean, Jamie's been doing racing quite a lot longer than I have. So she's got quite a lot of knowledge, to be fair to her. And I do pull from that sometimes, and she's quite a good help to the team. So, yeah, it's great to work with her, and, yeah, also good to have a common ground with someone on your team.
Now, Jamie's doing a lot of traveling. Are you actually based in the US? And if so, whereabouts?
Yeah, so I'm based in Indianapolis. I moved out here when I was 18, so I'm 20 now. So yeah, I've been here about two and a half years now.
And if you could live anywhere in America, where would you live?
Well, when I first moved to America, I was living in California,
Okay.
so that worked out nicely. And I was in California for about 2 years, but then I moved to Indianapolis because it's a lot easier with lifestyle and traveling and all that kind of stuff. And to be honest with you, also the Midwest of America is very nice, and I really like where I live now in Indy. So honestly, I wouldn't change where I live. To be honest with you.
Fantastic. When you first arrived in America, you had a lot to learn. The car, we've talked about that, but all the tracks as well. And there's a lot of tracks that are very much sort of traditional, old school circuits, like Alton Park, if you like. Did growing up doing Ginettas and F4 and stuff like that on those British circuits help you?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I would say it's probably like the American tracks, Japanese, and British tracks tend to have a lot of things in common that there's not much runoff at all. Um, and yeah, it does remind me a little bit of home. Even here we're in Mid Ohio right now, and it's the same. There's no track limits in IndyCar because you don't need them. Because if you go off the track, you're off the track. It's not faster. So that's what I really love about the IndyCar racing. It's just so on the edge. I mean, it's not like some of the tracks from the one race out where they've got a parking lot on the exit. So yeah, I love it. It's good fun and it makes it really nail biting.
Yeah, mistakes are punished, and no debates around track limits. Now, you've talked about the American Championships, the road to Indy, the teams supporting talent and young drivers. You had success straight away when you arrived in America. You won the championship. That must have been your goal, but to actually go and do it, there must have been a huge amount of pressure on your shoulders.
Yeah, I mean, there's always pressure on any driver's shoulders to for any goal they have that season. For me, we had a good start to the year in 22, and then once I kind of started to understand the tires, obviously, never driven on these kind of American tires. They tend to be a lot more of a stiffer compound than what I'm used to in Europe. Um, Once I kind of got a hang of them and understand how to drive them, yeah, it kind of started clicking really. But yeah, it was a fun year. Good competition as well. But then obviously the move up to Indy NXT has been a lot stronger competition, and it's been really hard to really to consistently be up there. It's a lot of hard work to be up in this championship.
Yeah, bigger cars, faster cars, and also that physical element. You must have felt that for the first time. We talk about it in IndyCar, but it's there in Indy NXT as well. What was that like when you made the transition up to Indy NXT in 2023? Were you prepared physically? Was it a shock?
It was definitely a shock. The car's a lot faster. I mean, and it's very active. It's quite funny, really. The way I see it personally is obviously it's a Dallara chassis, so it's built by an Italian manufacturer. And the way I see it is IndyCar, I don't know, whenever it was, 2015, I think this car was introduced. IndyCar asked Dallara to make this car, and Dallara made the chassis and went, hey, we think you should give this car 350 horsepower. And in my mind, IndyCar went, screw that, we'll give it 450. Because it's like, this thing has so much power compared to the grip it has, it's nuts. So we are constantly hacking at the wheel, always oversteering, always understeering. Like, it is just an absolute beast to drive. And it's fun because it just makes it more enjoyable. You look at FIA F3, which is a very similar speed car to this, I would say. And yeah, they're just managing tires the entire race, and they're just super smooth, and and it's in a way, in my opinion, boring. Like, I don't want to do that. I want to go hack it for 45 laps and rag it, and that's what we get to do in this series, and I love it.
I can just see the smile on your face, and you've come to life just explaining what it's like to drive the car, and that translates up again to IndyCar. So it is a good foundation. It is good practice then. In your first year of Indy NXT, 4 pole positions, you must have thought, hang on, there's a chance I can win this championship in my first year.
Yeah, I mean, that was the aim anyway. Like, we walked in thinking, yeah, the aim is to win this. We were good in preseason testing. I know we had the pace. We definitely had the pace to win the championship last year. I think just lack of experience with a lot of things. It's longest races I've ever done. Push to pass as well. Managing that is hard. It was my first year on these Firestone tires, so that was new as well. So it was a lot of new things. So yeah, I think we definitely thought we had a good championship charge at the start, but then we just had a few issues, like a few early season grunts, which hindered us, and also a few too many DNFs last year. So this year we've really worked on our racing and more just managing the race in a lot of different aspects, both mentally and also how I drive. So yeah, it was a tough year for me because I really did feel like we were one of the fastest cars out there, if not the fastest, definitely second fastest car out there last year. But we just didn't really come together in the races for us in general. But like I said, this year we worked really hard on that, made sure that we've got a good race car, and I'm doing the right things and not making any of those rookie mistakes.
You've had Hunter McElroy as your teammate last year, someone to learn off, but you made the transition to being team leader this year, and that comes with added responsibility. There's been lots of talk about how well you've done that and how well Andretti as a whole has stepped up this year. And that Andretti car where you were fighting with HMD last year has very much been the car to beat in 2024. You've done a lot of good work together.
Yeah, I mean, me and my engineer Doug, we work really closely together, and obviously we lead the setup with the car, and the team. Our teammates usually tend to follow us. But yeah, I mean, it's just a lot of hard work and different philosophies of setting up cars, which I've pulled from all my experience of driving different cars and kind of thrown at the wall and see what's stuck. And we've kind of found a sweet spot, I would say now. But yeah, just kind of using my knowledge of and understanding how I want the car to drive and the way it should be driven. Yeah, we've made quite a lot of hard work on it, and yeah, I'm glad it's worked out well.
Got 6 races left. 4 of them are ovals. I know that you have talked about this week being comfortable with the ovals. You have won on an oval, haven't you, in US Pro, and obviously you've been in the top 3 last year at Gateway as well. But ovals are so different for the drivers that have made the transition from Europe. Just talk us through what it's like to race on an oval and the challenges that presents.
Yeah, ovals are very daunting at first, for sure. Like it's quite nuts when you go into it for the first time and you're like just staring at the wall as you're going around. You're like, man, if I have one moment, I'm in that. Like there's no forgiving. I would personally say like I love qualifying in like a road circuit, but racing on an oval, nothing beats it. It's the best. Like as long as you've got a good car, because the car setup is so important on an oval. It's like on a road course, I would say it's like 60% driver, 40% setup. Like you as a driver can do a lot to manage the car and get the most out of it. On an oval, if you've got a bad car, it doesn't matter if you're an IndyCar world champion. It doesn't matter. You will go nowhere. So it's a lot of oval is working really close with your engineer and making sure you've got the perfect car, because the person with the perfect car will win the race 9 times out of 10.
That's what I would say. If you've got a bad car, pit lane is your friend.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, like we'll go out there and practice, and we'll do 3 laps and then box because we already know what the setup is, and we'll make a change. So, but no, they're super fun. They're just very nerve wracking. You're coming out of a corner like super high up on the banking, and you're like completely flat, and you're staring at the wall that's coming towards you, and you're like, I really hope I don't hit that. And you just don't know. Sometimes you just got to hope and pray.
How long does it take to trust your spotter as well, and to work with a spotter, and to sort of have that dynamic? You've never really experienced that before.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where once you've used it, it's hard to go back in a way. I have a spotter on road courses at certain corners as well. The team does, at least. So, the way I see it is like you, as a driver, where people are because you're spatially aware of, you've got your mirrors and you're spatially aware of where everyone should be. I see it as kind of like a second confirmation. So when you're clear on a car, you should realistically already know that you're clear, but that's just like the second double check that, yes, I am. But they're great. I mean, they all work really hard, and there's a lot of good guys that do spotting. I mean, the guy that I've got this year, Bob, he's amazing. And they're also really good at coaching you through races as well. I mean, they sit up top of the oval and they can see the whole thing. So they're aware of what's going on. They can tell you about lines. They also, with ovals, it's super important with managing your line to the car behind. So if the car behind you starts running a different line, if you start driving the line that they're doing, it messes them up because they lose the clean air. So it's it's quite a lot that the spotter does that really helps out in the whole race. They're a massive part of the win if you end up getting one.
Now you're leading the championship. You're doing everything you can to graduate to IndyCar. You've seen Nolan Siegel and Christian Rasmussen graduate from last season as well. You got a really strong relationship with Andretti. I think it was Detroit when you just had your success. I think you were talking to the Andretti drivers before they were introduced to the crowd, before they go on and do the IndyCar race. What's it like being in that IndyCar stable, having that relationship with the team, with the drivers, leading the championship now, and being on course to realise your dream?
Yeah, I mean, it's great. Andretti have been by my side for the past 1.5 years. I would love to stay with them as long as I can. It's a great family. Everyone here is super, super great and super talented. Obviously, with the IndyCar guys, I asked them after their sessions how the track was and vice versa. So we feed off each other a little bit. Obviously, they're doing their own thing, and it's definitely a distinguished team, the next team and the IndyCar team. But it's great to be able to kind of get an understanding of, for example, in our qualifying session there, I had a chat to Rob Howden, Rob Edwards, about the setup of the car of the IndyCar, see where the track was going. So then we made adjustments based on that, and it turned out decently well. So obviously I'd love to stay with them. I think at the moment they're going to be running 3 cars in IndyCar, so the likelihood of me moving up next year into the main team is very low. But obviously want to stay close in touch and one day be in the team.
And there's a huge amount of movement in the IndyCar paddock at the moment.
Yeah,
it goes week by week.
Yeah, I mean it's a very fluid market at the moment. For me, on my side of things, we're talking to teams, and obviously clearly the goal is to be in IndyCar next year. But I'm not in the fortunate position of some of the other drivers who have moved up in the last 6 months or so, who can just throw money at it. I need to win the championship because I need the money for that. It's at the end of the day, every race team is a business, and they need that scholarship money of, I think it's about $1.3 million to move up to IndyCar for the champion of the series. I need it, we need to do that. And obviously winning the championship also helps a lot with opening eyes to a lot more sponsors for the teams, and also each team owner. If you can say, yeah, I've got the Indy NXT champion on board, it helps out. So obviously main goal is to win the championship. Once we've done that, then we can start properly discussing IndyCar stuff, because until then it'll be hard.
And I think the Linus Lundqvist story must give you a lot of hope. I know timing and patience don't come naturally to racing drivers. It's the hardest thing. But, his story's been a fabulous one.
Yeah, I mean, I know Linus quite well. He's been around similar teams to me since 2019. So, it was a bit of a shame when he didn't get a seat. I personally don't think it's particularly fair. It's a similar thing to F2 with the F2 champions. It's like you win a championship and then it's like, great, I'm going to go sit on the sidelines for 3 years. It's a bit of a shame, really. But it's just because there's such high competition for seats, and also the average age of drivers is increasing as fitness and health gets better. People can race for longer. Look at Scott Dixon, Will Power. They're a lot older than a lot of drivers used to be, let's say 20 years ago. People are just staying in the series a lot longer, and it makes those few seats that are open so competitive to get in. Obviously I'm hoping that if we are to win the championship, we can find a slot for ourselves on the grid for 2025.
Louis, you've been a wonderful guest. It's been fabulous to listen to your story so far, and at 20 years of age, leading the championship, you've got it all ahead of you. Everyone here at Sky Indycar wishes you the very best of luck, and thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, appreciate it.